I know it from first hand. I was taught very well how stupid I am, how incapable of finishing a thought. I was partly responsible for teaching myself this because I have attention deficit, like my 13-year-old son, but when I was 13, nobody knew what that term meant. And nobody thought anything other than the fact that this guy can't finish a sentence without going on to another sentence. And he's always saying strange things. And nobody knew what to do about that. So I didn't get any help. So I had to, I had to go through a long rebellion. I would say, the rebellion's been brewing for decades. And then it's gone through periods of, there have been rebellions, and then there have been counter-rebellions. Partly because when I would rebel, I would go the opposite of the way I've been, which is typically hesitant and not sure of what I'm doing or saying or thinking. That was the way I used to be all the time. And then, but every once in a while, I'd break out of it. Enough! Enough! I am sick of everybody thinking that I'm just an idiot. So, I'm going to show the world how brilliant I am, how insightful, how creative, how I see things so clearly. And when I would do that, what do you think people would think? Oh my gosh, that guy must have smoked too much pot. So you can imagine how long those rebellions would last because of the feedback I'd get. People would go, or I'd actually get in trouble, because especially when I break out of this attitude that, this feeling that, oh my gosh, I can't be good at this job. That's why I kept getting fired from jobs, because I would get to a point where I'd say, wait a minute, you keep telling me I'm not good enough here, I'm not good enough there, why can't I just do it? And I try, and actually I think I'm doing an okay job by your standards. Because you don't really care if I do a really good job, you just care that I follow your standards, that I pay attention to what's important to you. And which is, I'm not blaming anybody for that one, that's what we do in general. I'm just saying, in my case, when I was in jobs where people would say, well, this is what we need from you. Do this. And then I'd say, well, but what about that? What about the other thing? Or maybe, okay, I'm trying to do what you say. And this is the way that it seems to me that it will work. But it tended not to work to the satisfaction of my employers. And when I would get sort of say, come on now, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to prove to my employer just how good I am, because I'm really going to put all my all into it, and I'm going to do what I believe is right. That's a good way to get fired, as I've learned over and over again. And the people who love me, and thank God, I thank you, God, for having people who are willing to put up with my nonsense for years and years. Been married to the same woman for 30 years. After the woman that I was married to for 40 years, I then married this woman for 30 years. I'm just kidding. I haven't been married 70 years. That would be difficult. Very difficult indeed. I just wanted to see if you were awake, So, here we are on this fine day. It's a day that will live in infamy. F-A-M-Y, Look it up in the dictionary, you won't find it. But why not? Well, how could you have a word infamy, meaning, a day that people will remember because it was bad? Well, why don't you have a day that will live in infamy, like a glorious day like today? Maybe not forever, and maybe not for people all over the world, but for us, we denizens of this fair city that has weather that sometimes is less than we would like it to be, or more than we would like it to be, however you want to put it. For example, I like a little bit of snow. That first one was kind of fun, and especially what I really loved about that first big blizzard was for a bunch of things. One is we got to see them. No, never mind. I was going to say something negative, and I'm not going to say it, about politicians, about people running things. I was going to say something negative, and, it's too glorious of a day. The guy is trying as hard as he can. I think he should have hung up after 2 times and let somebody else take over, just because I think that's just good in general. I mean, I voted for the guy twice. I did not vote for him the 3rd time. I really didn't. I was not going to. I didn't vote for the other guy either, because the other guy it wasn't going to work out with the other guy. So anyway, there were other people to vote for. And I was actually going out right up to November 4th or whatever the date was last year, the year before this past November, I mean. And I was going out talking to people about this, about the idea that democracy is seeming to be for sale to the highest bidder. And there seems to be a class of people, of which our mayor is one of them, that sort of has a noblesse oblige idea, which I'm not totally against, to be honest. I think people who have make all this money actually do have an obligation to step forward and try to fix things, because Lord knows we need people who don't have to go to work just to put food on the table. We need those people to actually try to make things better. And Michael Bloomberg, I have to say, as much as I detest some of the things you've done, especially with the Department of Education, I think you are actually, deep down, even though you have some arrogance, some real arrogance, but underneath that, I actually believe in you, sir, as a human being. And I actually would have voted for you for the 3rd time. If you had just done what you said, sir. You said, well, let's let people have a chance to vote for me for a 3rd term. They know who I am, so let them just vote me in or out. That's simple. Now, of course, doing that alone scared people, because people said, oh, well, first of all, Bloomberg's fairly popular, and secondly, he's a billionaire. He might use his money to crush an opponent. Well, no, this is the difference, because you see, Michael Bloomberg is so wealthy and so independent, and he's had 8 years of experience, so everybody knows if he's good or not. So, of course, he doesn't have to use any campaign. He doesn't have to campaign at all. The other person has to campaign to make themselves known. So, why, sir? Why, Sir Michael? Did you choose to outspend your very, very weak opponent? He couldn't have won against Mickey Mouse. No, he would have won against Mickey Mouse, but that's about it. He was just he was a hack. I knew from way back when he was the president of the Board of Education. My gosh, what a hack. That's all he is. He could not run this city. So, Michael, you just had to go. You should have if you had spent your time just governing and talking to the people about what's needed, about fiscal responsibility, about the difficult choices we need to make, if that's what you did with your $90 million, well, that would have been quite different from making sure that you would win. Do you realize how many people are very angry with you about that? And not only angry, feeling betrayed, sir, because you used your money the wrong way.